you with it as well. The more people board, the better. That I literally, like, now maybe 7 minutes ago, finished putting together the new desktop, because the desktop I had was, I don't know, it was either 12 or 15 years old.
Yay, I'm so grateful.
And
Mm.
I mean, I have lots of laptops and I always get a new laptop, every certain intervals. But my desktop, which I was very fond of and was loyal and trustworthy, but finally aged out. Anyway, so putting together that laptop, getting under my computer table and pulling out all the wires and putting in the new thing was a total body workout.
Oh,
Like,
great. Great.
right? Because I had to, like, get down on my hands and knees, get up from my hands and knees, 10 times, back and forth. So that's the joke I wanted to start with. So
There you go. I like it.
I like it too, except it only lasts for like one day.
I know, I'm 71 and I know that I need to start incorporating more upper body and core stuff into
Yeah.
my
I'm a big fan
exercise.
of F45, Carmen. We need to get you at F45. It's a group workout thing where you go around the room and for
Yeah.
45 minutes you work out with other people. And I'll tell you, I would take you there in a minute.
There you
I
go.
think 45 minutes is too long for me to commit to, but my life is, when I was on the seventh floor of the CIA, uh, but let me finish this before I go to the next.
Okay.
Uh, when I was on the seventh floor, oh yeah, when you're on at that level, your schedule is, or
Jam
your
pack.
time is scheduled in 15-minute increments,
Mm.
and you have to, like, kind of very firmly tell, in my case, Patty, the wonderful person who was my executive assistant, to tell her, I go, you got to give me a 30-minute block of free time at least once per day. That we can't have this.
This is going to be hell.
Yes. And then so that ends that. And the thing, Julia attended the meeting of the Public Interest Declassification Board yesterday.
Oh.
Oh, it
I
was really, really interesting.
It was good, and our new chairperson Mark is really good, but
Yep.
he has this annoying habit of always wanting to introduce me as, former CIA, said in a way that makes it sound ominous, kind of like the X-Files. Do you know the man smoking the perfume cigarettes
The
vibe?
smoking man, yeah.
Yeah, the smoking man. And I just hate it. And apparently I shocked the rest of the board when when Mark began his introduction and I said, don't, just don't.
I
And
thought it was great. I might have been the only one
afterwards,
who laughed in the room.
after what? What did you say?
I think I might have been the only one who laughed in the room. Everyone
Oh,
was, but it's so funny.
all the other board members were going, boy, I love the way you did that, Carmen. And this might be a good way to segue into Adam. I've always been,
Ooh, we also have to turn off the notifications on the new
yeah,
computer.
yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
done that yet. I've always been a little different, but the thing about when you're a little different, I think, is you don't actually. It takes you years to realize how different you are from
Yes.
from the expected norm.
Um,
I'm in fact, yesterday was another example of where I went, oh, I guess that was too different. Okay, check.
Always learning.
yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
how does well, first, Adam, introduce yourself, and you can pick
Yeah.
up on that thread that I dangled in front of you or not.
Or we could
Yeah.
discuss how Carmen's introduction sort of segues into you in different ways, in 13 different ways.
Yeah. I mean, where do I start, Carmen? The intelligence community connection or the being weird connection?
Both of them, probably.
Yeah, I guess well, I just left the intelligence community, where I was with the FBI for over 15 years as an analyst. So Carmen, at some point, I would have loved to have been your analyst. So, but because I could definitely relate to the weird thing, which for your audience, right now I am uh, calling myself a future self strategist, where I am a logic to intuition integration advisor, and I'm
Very
helping.
cool.
Yeah, I'm helping right now supporting U.S. federal workers who want to transition their careers into something that's new and more aligned. And I'm doing that by incorporating my FBI background and experiences with my Akashic Records work. So helping individuals
Sorry, say
connect.
that again with your
Akashic Records.
Akashic Records work.
Akashic.
Yes.
Yep. So helping individuals connect to their inner intelligence so they can start to make more external actions that are where they're at on their journey and that light them up and get them excited.
So, for those of us who might not know exactly what Akashic Records means or refers to, please
Yeah.
elaborate.
Yeah, sure. So the simplified version is the Akashic Records are essentially an energetic library of your soul from past, present, and future, where you can gain answers to your deeper questions. And I use it as a tool myself and with my clients to help guide them toward a path that's for their highest good. Another phrase you could use is their highest vibration. Another phrase you could use is just a positive pathway.
Yeah, yeah.
And it really helps me to make sure that I am taking action that is for me and for my purpose. So, yeah.
Very good. Um, I Julia, do you have a question now, or because I
No, I
have
just
one?
wanted
But
to insert that the Akashic Records come from this relatively ancient Indian idea that this kind of library exists for everyone who has ever and will ever be on the planet,
right,
including past lives and future lives and all that. And so tapping into it is a bit. I did an Akashic Records reading with Adam 2 days ago.
oh,
And so I can tell you, not only I've done them before with other people, but I can tell you not only sort of generically what they're like, but more specifically how helpful it was with Adam, specifically because it's the beginning of the year and I wanted to do that. And also I wanted to do that so we could talk about it on this show. So
very interesting. I might consider doing that. I once with you, Adam.
Sure. Yeah. Let me
I
know.
once, I don't know, 25 years ago, went to this woman's only retreat in West Virginia, and
Yeah.
they had all sorts, drum therapy, different sessions, and one of them was with a past lives person,
Okay.
and the most, expert or consultant. And the most useful thing, I think it was a woman that she said, was that whatever periods of history you find yourself now attracted to
Hmm.
are, and I've said this before, are clues to your past lives. And I was thinking about that because I was, going through what book I was going to read next or whatever.
Hmm.
And, there might be a book like on the American Civil War. No, not interested. But I picked up Catherine and Diderot, Catherine the Great,
Hmm.
despite being a Russian czar and autocrat, was fascinated by the Enlightenment and had both Voltaire and Diderot come and spend the winter with her in
Mm.
Russia. I suppose that was like an honor, but it doesn't sound like an honor to me.
that sounds terrifying.
But I've always been fascinated by every aspect of Russian history. So I just, and to the point of believing, and probably a minority opinion, but that there is something quite similar about the Russian soul and the
Oh.
Spanish soul,
Ooh, that totally jives.
that we tend toward kind of a fascination with death, frankly, that there's like a morbidness to us,
Uh-huh.
or morbid is perhaps the wrong word, but something like that,
Sure.
and also a very romantic
Mhm,
Hmm.
nature. Uh,
mhm.
but anyway, I digress.
I
Well, do
like
you digress?
I
Sorry,
li-
Adam, what were you about to say?
no, I like that connection. I'm not too familiar with it, but it resonates. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Hmm.
Carmen, were you saying you wanted to do an Akashic Records reading right now with Adam? Or you
No,
mean,
I don't know that we can do it right now. Because
Yeah, probably not appropriate for right now.
yeah.
yeah,
So, but
yeah,
I
seems
would,
like
I
private.
mean, I would actually, I think,
Yeah.
pursue that.
Well,
I'm
if
going
you
back to Texas. Literally, my flight departs at 5:25 today. So as soon
oh
as
my God.
we end, I'm getting
Yeah.
the Uber. So
Well, yeah, if I can set the scene then, Carmen, on how it could probably help you.
yes.
I use it, so I use the Akashic Records as another form of intelligence.
Mm,
And if you are I'll elaborate for you, Julia, but I want to translate for Carmen first. If you're looking for more geoint, osint, or sigint
mm,
decision making, that's what the Akashic Records, I use it a lot for. Meaning, if you need context around something, you need like plans and intentions for yourself on what to do, or like big picture, what's happening in your life on so and so issue. Um, that's kind of how I approach it. It's how I kind of approached Julia's reading when she had her questions, but I look at different angles of how the intelligence that's coming out of the records can support my decision making.
mm. Interesting.
Hmm. So, yeah.
My experience, I think I will give an illustration,
Hold on a
if that's
second.
okay.
I just have to adjust my chair here.
I think Carmen is wearing a hot pink
Well, I
sweat.
was wondering when you were going to notice.
I noticed it about 5 minutes ago, but I didn't want to interrupt Adam. And it's a Tintin
Yes, it
sweatshirt.
is. It's a Tintin sweatshirt.
Yeah, see, so Carmen likes to confuse the enemy. Because she recently said that she does not like hot pink. And
Well,
so
I am, as I said, I'm flying, so I was changing to what I'm going to wear on the plane, and TSA does not like hoodies. They they
no.
they can
Oh,
cause you problems. So
Yeah.
you almost always get patted down when you wear a hoodie. So I
okay.
thought, well, let me find a sweatshirt, and then I saw this one, and I thought, oh, Julia will like this.
They also don't like overalls, I found out.
Uh, ah,
Because too many they go off here and then there's too many
yeah, it's too
pockets.
much stuff that you
Yeah,
could tuck something into.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
My experience with Adam and the Akashic Records reading was all the things he said, I sort of he was it's like all of because I'm very intuitive. So of course all the things he said were because he's also very intuitive. They were it was an intuitive match. So I just felt like yes, I know those things. So that in itself, it wasn't like you gave me information that I didn't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
At all. That was a surprise. What was really the difference between me just sitting around and knowing stuff, you know, intuitively and doing a records reading with you, Adam, was the way you talked about it and the order in which it's almost like the order in which the information came up and the different emphasis you put on different things gave me insight that I did not have just with myself inside
Mm.
myself. And so it's almost like you play my mind like a fiddle in not not in a bad way, not in a manipulative way, but it's just in a way so that I could have the insights that I needed to have. I still had all the raw materials, but you created the insight in me
Mm.
by doing it in that way. And that's a really powerful way to do things, especially for someone who's, um, you know, intuitive already. And so I always think that I know the deal, but
Right.
you were able to get me into a different space of insight, right?
Sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I often try to relate or describe what's coming through when I'm doing a reading based on sort of my markers of reference point. So, describing, I was telling someone just jokingly what it's like to do a reading, and um, uh, they were like, well, they first asked me, like, well, how do you know it's real? And then we got onto that sort of conversation. And then we also talked about how do you use it? Um, and then we got on another conversation on uh, why why can't you like do it all the time? And I just had to pause at the end of that, and I was like, well, you tried to describe energy.
Right.
And so what Julia's saying, just as a just one of foot stomp, is I use symbols, markers of my experience to help the individual understand what's going on energetically on their path. And yeah, so it makes it a lot easier. So I'm glad to hear that, Julia.
Yeah, no, you're extremely skilled at it. And I'm very curious how you figured out that you would be skilled at this because you and I met when you were just starting to come out of the closet at work as someone who was
Yeah.
spiritually interested.
Yes. Oh my, Carmen, you should have been there. I mean,
Oh,
we had an icebreaker at the FBI, and we went around the table and we're like, okay, tell us about something about yourself. And I was like, okay, here we go. And I was like, I practice the Akashic Records, and they're like, what?
what?
What? I mean, law enforcement officer, like agents were in the room and everything, and it was just yeah, it was a little bit of a mic drop moment. But
Uh,
yeah, and Julie, to your question, this might give your audience sort of an insight ballpark. And also, Carmen, I just have to shout out your amazingness. I think you saw my LinkedIn post of what caught my attention, that
yeah.
article, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's how I do things." And so I realize kind of behind the scenes what the Akashic Records is like when I was doing analysis for the FBI, I would notice when I was in flow that I could feel words, phrases, and I would intuitively make analytic judgments based on the different kinds of intelligence sources, what the problem set was asking for, what it wasn't asking for, where policymakers were at in their journey and what they needed, what my executive leadership needed, like all these different priorities and complexities. And then I would interweave based on raw intelligence what I was seeing, and then would make finished intelligence, or the final product, uh, intuitively made sense at that point in time with that information that was available. And doing readings now was like, oh, I was essentially like reading the records of the Bureau.
Yeah.
Or at least reading the energy of the intelligence reports.
Right.
And I told someone this, that when you're in flow, you're essentially in your records. You just knowing how to decipher it, knowing what to use, how to explore it is like the advanced step.
Interesting.
Hmm.
So,
Wow. Yeah.
when we started out, Adam, you said you had wish you had been able to work, for me in your career, and that made me think about, well, who did work for me
Ah,
in my career? And at CIA, I'm sure at FBI, very similar. Among the analysts, we have a population of INTJs.
yeah.
I don't know in the Myers-Briggs formulation. That's introverted, intuitive, thinking, and judgmental. And
Hmm.
I'm ENFP. That's sorry, INFP. Although I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten more extroverted, or at least more comfortable in being socially extroverted. But so my angle on almost every issue is quite different. And so I think the INTJs and I made a good partnership. And I'm still friends with several of them. And I I have enough analytic skills to be able to speak their language. I can be a rational person, hard to believe, but true. Uh, so I don't know. I'm just thinking back. I don't think I ever had a truly, uh, intuitive style analyst work for
Mm,
me. I might be wrong. And I wonder, because you brought it up, whether or not it would work well, or
mm,
whether or not you would, people like you and people like me work better for kind of like a benevolent, uh, rational person.
sure.
And, because really, I don't need to double down on the crazy. I, you know, I
Here
can,
are we calling intuition crazy,
no,
Carmen?
no, no, but that's the word that other people use, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that, Adam?
Well, if I was your analyst and you were my, I guess I think you all used branch chief was
Yes,
one title. I think we would have gotten well, really, yeah, because along really well because often some of the I think the equivalent at the FBI is a unit chief, um, and some of my bosses, probably because I was also very heavily involved in the space industry toward the tail end of my career at the FBI, but I would often do analysis that was very much, I won't say forward leaning, but cutting on the edge of emerging trends. And sometimes my analysis was um, not in line, or it was pushing the analytic line.
hmm
And um, uh, especially if I was also looking at other agencies' final conclusions on so and so topic, I would often have more of a different narrowing opinion. But yeah, I think we gotta would have been fine actually because some of the bosses that I've had, they were very much like do this kind of a line of analysis. We need this. And I'm like, well, that's boring, but okay.
exactly. Oh, yes. Yeah. By the
You
way,
know,
Julia, when Adam uses the phrase analytic line, you
yeah.
could translate that into algorithm. So, analytic line is the formula that whatever group has developed to explain the little world that they're responsible for. And if you come along as a different
Sorry,
person and
I think.
go, well, that should not be a plus sign. That should be a minus, or
Yep.
or there's another variable in there that you're not even thinking about. That's a very dangerous thing to do in most intelligence units.
All right,
Yeah.
can I just like get
Yeah,
upset?
yeah, please.
I have to get upset. Well, so yeah, the analytic line thing I've heard before. Um, when you're doing science and trying to discover the reality of what's going on in the world, it is considered bad form to take someone else's, other scientists' idea of what's going on in the world, because there's already someone investigating with that opinion.
Mm.
There's already someone with that bias. And how are you useful as a scientist if you're going to take that bias? You should have a different bias and test that out because very few scientists are actually going to hit on the right thing anyway. And the greater chances you are of being accurate, the more people looking at it in different ways, the greater chances you are of being accurate. Now, the reason why you could do that is because you could do an experiment to find out if you're accurate, right? So in the analytic community, it kind of bugs me that there's no sort of like way of saying like, but we can't do an experiment with people's lives. We can't do an experiment with geopolitical events. That we get that, right? That too high stakes, not appropriate, unethical. And how do you not just say, well, but we can do a thought experiment if this were true, if the analytic line were true, if this were true, if that were true, then why do we see this here? And so why isn't it a part? So I don't understand that. And I will go to my grave maybe never understanding that. But can you help me understand why like challenging the analytic line isn't the main activity that intelligence analysts are taught to do?
Ooh, that's a that's a juicy question. Would you like to chime in,
No,
Carmen, or?
I want, you're the guest and we want to
Oh,
feature you.
okay. Well, let's see. I guess I could start with the atmosphere of being an analyst and how the analytic line is related to that. Meaning, some agencies have certain responsibilities and purpose in the intelligence community, um, and often some, I want to put this, analysts from a particular agency uh, try to, I'll
They want
say,
to start with a foregone conclusion and they want you to tell you how their fucking foregone conclusion is true. That's what you're trying to say.
well, yeah, well, there's like a, I don't say there's like a hierarchy with culturally, but sometimes it does play a role on what analytic line gets to the forefront of a decision maker. And because of that, there might be intelligence mistakes, but they're like I don't say the bureaucracy of coordination plays a role, but it does a little bit. There's also priorities. So, like what I mentioned earlier, when I was at the FBI, upholding the Constitution and protecting the American people was my priority. If you're at, let me name your intelligence agency. If you're a Department of Energy, your priority is protecting the United States energy infrastructure and electricity and so forth. So following analytic conclusions, it ebbs and flows. Like I wouldn't follow anything that Department of Homeland Security would be writing on. I mean, I would, but not certain things and so forth. So sometimes
Oh God.
some groups would have an opinion or have a analytic judgment on something, and some agencies would not, or they wouldn't know the conversation's even happening, and it would go up to a policymaker, and some agency would be left at a coordination, or so on and so forth. But there's a lot of
Oh,
reasons, and then like priorities of your internal internally within the organization, those were different too. So you kind of had to play a lot of
oh,
different hands.
I'm sorry. Look,
Uh,
it's what it sounds like to me, and this is not your fault, but it sounds like to me is what you're saying in a very pretty way is they don't want to know the answer. They don't want to know what people think or what actually might be accurate.
mm.
You could just replace the whole thing with an LLM that says you're brilliant. You should just do what you want.
I don't know, Carmen. I mean, I
What?
know I was talking in a little generalities just for to give grace to everyone's doing their best, but any thoughts on any of that?
Well, I'm influenced by the book I just finished reading, The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. Came out about 15 years ago, but it's actually a good book to read right now, given our
Mm,
current circumstances. And it's basically why good people disagree.
mm,
And I think that, and this is something he talks about, that he uses the metaphor of the elephant and the rider on top of the elephant. And the elephant is our intuition, and the rider is our rational brain. And it's very, and we live in Western society in particular as if the rider can completely control the elephant. When in fact, if you just look at it, just look at the physics of it all. If the elephant wants to do something different, there's really no way the rider's ever going to be able to control the elephant. And
mm,
I think that in bureaucracy and bureaucratic government and scientific management, all these ideas that developed as a result of the Industrial Revolution, and particularly in the 20th century in the United States and in England and in Germany, I think those were hotbeds of this. The idea is that we can reason our way through everything. And that just became accepted dogma. And it doesn't matter how many times, there's an Iranian Revolution, or there's an Arab Spring, or there's whatever's happening now, people never learn that lesson. And the reason why they don't learn that lesson or resist learning that lesson, I would assert, is because they can't operationalize learning that lesson. It's too hard. They would have to totally rethink how to do everything. Yep. So I don't think it's a bad idea, by the way, Julia, for intelligence to be reframed as your job is to always challenge the policymaker, is to figure out what the policymaker's thinking and let her know how she could be wrong. I think I can imagine there's two jobs for analysts. One is to help the duly elected policymaker achieve their goals in the best way possible.
For sure.
That's one. And then two, inform the policymaker as a kind of a matter of obligation where their goals are mistaken or what dangers consequences could come. That's totally different from speaking truth to power. Because we should just give up the myth that we discover truth. It's not true that we discover truth.
Yeah, I agree. If that's what's going on in the intelligence community, where all these priorities are basically, and then there's this analytic line, and then what you're doing is you're playing a really gifted and complex and bureaucratic version of I'll be your system 2 rationalizer.
Mm-hmm.
And we already know what the intuitive mind is doing. And what the system 2 does all the time is rationalize and say, well, that was the best thing because of this. Well, that's a really important thing to do, because exactly what Carmen said is that the Western world is functioning on this idea that we do things for logical reasons. So you need to tell a good story about why you do things. Otherwise you seem haphazard and people get upset, right? Eventually we will maybe understand the ways of intuition, and we will start to say, oh, we can just see that intuitively we can all look at the energy of the situation and see it seems weird, rational. We can't really rationalize it in some kind of useful way that makes everyone happy, but we all see that this energy is blue over here and we need to make it more green.
Well, and I would just say that right now we are living through a period of time, months, years, decades, who knows how long it will last, where energy, all the different energies that are out there are actually calling the shots, are actually much more deterministic of what's happening and of reality than any other formulation I have. This US administration has an energy that has caught the rest of the world completely flat-footed. Whoa, right?
Oh, yeah, I never would have thought about that angle, but yeah, I can see that.
And so I can't get into the details, but I know that I know just from experience, I don't know, but I know that there must be incredible meetings going on among our allies as they talk to each other, trying to figure out the American elephant, because none of this computes for them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's Ian McGilchrist, also another great writer on this sort of left brain, right brain, rational versus intuitive story, and makes the same points. Lives in the world. I mean, he's, I believe, in the UK. He lives in the world of, if you're not able to tell a coherent logical story, then you're wrong. And in fact, what I think the genius of the Trump administration is, screw the coherent story. Like, the coherent story is a lie. It's a rationalization.
No, I mean, they are I mean, when you read the works of like Steve Bannon and other thinkers, they're very much into intuition and energy.
Mm,
That's really where they're coming from. And, if you force them, they will give you kind of a rationalization of what they're doing. But really, I think that what they're about is energy
Yeah.
and intuition. And and they're also, by the way, about creating new realities.
Mhm.
And that is the ultimate goal of a policymaker. Not all policymakers go for that goal. It's too hard. They don't have a clear concept of what the new reality should be, blah, blah, blah.
mm,
But this administration definitely has a vision of a new reality and they're going for it. And so they don't really care what the rules were or have been. That's just totally irrelevant to them.
Yeah.
mm, yeah.
And so when people get upset, so I have plenty of friends who get super upset, and there are many things to get upset over. In it whenever reality is changing so much that norms get violated, and the norms were there for a reason. And so people get upset, but it feels to me they often target the wrong thing. They get upset like, well, this doesn't make sense. And it's like that sense making thing no longer matters. Stop it.
Yes, stop it. Exactly. It doesn't matter. I don't know if I've said this to you before, but what it reminds me a bit is of the post World War One transformation of Europe, where all these aristocracies that were, centuries old ruling dynasties collapsed within about 5 years and no longer mattered. They just no longer mattered. And except for like Hello Magazine and Royalty Watch that likes to keep track of these things, they just don't really matter. And I think it's very tough for people who have upheld the liberal consensus in the West to accept the idea that they may no longer matter. And let me just be clear that for the record, I hope that that doesn't happen because I think there's a lot of good with the liberal consensus, but it's under tremendous attack.
Well, it's this story of irrelevance, but Carmen, it's this experience of irrelevance, but it reveals that the underlying story was I am important. And I think that is reasonable to attack.
Well, that's always, I mean, all of us, I think,
Yeah.
are chasing significance. That's like a thing that happens in our lives. We chase significance. There may be some really highly evolved Buddhist monks or Sufi, whatever the right word for them would be, clerics, or Hindu, or even Christian mystics who
Mm,
stop chasing significance. But I think that's quite rare.
It's quite rare but the problem is that when the significance becomes your story about why some particular thing is important to do, in other words, you're falling for your own intuition. You're basically not realizing that you're rationalizing based on your desire for significance.
mm.
So, Adam, please react to this.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Well, I mean, I think both of you will bring up a lot of different good points. I mean, I'm not sure I could follow or build upon the scholarly point of view, except that with the conversation around significance, I think a lot of Americans right now, I'll talk in generalities, especially with the individuals who I'm looking to support right now, which is federal workers
Right.
transition, are looking for significance themselves. And I wrote a post about this last week, using the metaphor of a winter coat, where um, previous U.S. government workers probably feel like a discarded winter coat where they used to be essential, they used to be protective, but now, they're not really seen or heard or any of that. So, I mean, in regarding that conversation around significance, I can see it being a huge player right now.
And I think that's very hard because, there are different types of people in the workforce. There are people who are working to make enough income to sustain their lifestyle, right? Or in their lives, their families. And they don't really seem to have aspirations beyond that. Although every once in a while, you find someone who retires from what seemed to be a not interesting job, and they have, they write a book, or they become great watercolorists, so still waters run deep. But a lot of people, who joined the State Department or Health and Human Services, uh, or the Coast Guard or whatever, they had a sense of a mission. They invested a lot in an education that they hoped would allow them to achieve important goals, usually on behalf of the country, but also for themselves. And that has really um, destroyed, maybe too strong a word, but disrupted for sure.
Hmm. Yeah,
Sorry, I
100%.
that's the problem of having a new computer here.
Are you getting all the updates, maybe?
No, no, it's like I didn't adjust all the settings because I hate notifications. By the
Mm,
way, I hate notifications, Microsoft. I hate them. But unless you go dig through everything to turn them all off, you
mm,
keep getting them.
Yep.
And I can't turn down the volume here because obviously we're talking. So
right.
But Carmen, I feel like and Adam, it feels like you're both familiar with, way more familiar than I am with federal workers who decided to go pursue a mission. I'm I'm familiar with scientists who have pursued missions since they were kids, about that, their deal. So in that sense, there's that diagram overlap. But um, there's a significance that's about the individual ego, and there's a significance that's about self-transcendence. Like, I would like to be of significance to something that's larger than me. And it
Mm,
feels to me like what we're talking about in terms of significance here, people seeking significance. I don't believe, Adam, that people are coming, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't believe people are coming to you to say, how can I build up my ego? It feels to me like they're looking for their mission where can make a difference. In other words, there's a slight difference between making a difference in a self-transcendent act than making a difference by, now I'm more popular. Do you know what I mean?
hmm.
Do you see that difference in the people who come to you?
Yeah, a lot of the individuals that I've been talking to are trying to find themselves again. It's a mixture of like reinvention, identity change, finding their purpose, feeling lost right now, and then Carmen, what you had mentioned earlier, there's also the financial aspect as well and stability. So one of my like personal uh, goals, missions is to kind of do what I did at the FBI, but now take it to the American people, specifically. Not that I didn't before, but there was like layers of contact. Like I never really got to meet anyone I really helped. So now I have an opportunity to actually come face to face with people like my analysis and intuitive gifts, to help individuals. So in that way, if I'm hearing you, Julia, I think I'm using sort of the theme of your comment, to support individuals as they go through this really hard time. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me. And it feels like that distinction of significance out of desperation, because if you're not significant, you don't exist as a person. Like you are your ego,
Mhm.
versus significance out of need and desire to be of service, and not sure how to do that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's spot on. And I've gotten that sort of feedback from a lot of people, that they're just like, I don't even know where to start. Some of it's like frustration around the job market in the Washington, D.C. area. Some of it's frustration around government contracting right now, all so on and so forth. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard when you have kind of not that many versions of yourself to draw upon. And so that's where I think this Akashic record exploration can be very helpful,
hmm
because you know, presumably your focus is on the different paths
hmm
that your life could take or has taken.
Yes, essentially. Yeah, it picks up on what the rational mind cannot see.
Mhm.
And it's like the musical notes or the treasures in between your rational thoughts. Um, it's the silence that's hard to articulate. And that's where observing energy frequencies is more the solution.
Do you see with your mind's eye, or do you hear with your mind's ear, or um, is it just a knowing, or what is your experience of when you're in contact with the records?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on the question from the client. The oh my God, I got having a little bit of a deja vu moment because the client's kind of like my policymaker.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's the needs of the client, the expectations of the client, where the client is on their journey, and what a data they've given me already. Meaning, like what I mentioned earlier to Carmen, if I need to have more of that bird's eye view, I will use a technique that's similar to GeoInt, you could say, and get more of the broader picture. If I need more of that human intelligence, I will use more, it's kind of like sensing the energy and moving around it technique. I also am attuned to messages that I hear, and that's kind of equivalent to more of the second. I need like phrases, words. Um, and I will use that if more of the human aspect of navigating energy isn't working, or there's a block. Sometimes there's an energy block, so I'll use different clearing techniques to get more granular data, or better context.
What's a clearing technique?
Ooh, well, one is the biggest one is not pushing. So when you if like if you're let me put it in terms of, if you're a collections officer, you're always sort of wanting to gather
Right.
and push. Whereas when you are navigating energy, you can be proactive and get answers, or you can let it fall. And one approach to remove a block is to let the information fall. And that takes, it's a challenge because when I was first learning how to do this, I would always be, I'll say, proactive and seek answers.
Hmm.
And sometimes that's not always the route to go. And so you have to switch it and let the information fall within your awareness.
Yeah. Well, that's a very Western bias, to wit, there is always a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all a big learning for me. I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago, when I just incorporated the idea, oh, there often isn't a solution. There is no solution. Okay. I'm okay with that. I can get, like, kicking the can down the road sometimes is the best you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And we shouldn't like demean it.
Right. Yeah.
So we just have a couple of minutes left before I definitely have to disappear. So I was wondering if Adam, you could, how do people reach out to you? All the federal workers who need support during this period.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So if any of your listeners are in the middle of a career transition or even just a personal shift and looking for more clarity on your next steps, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I share insights on how to integrate logic and intuition to make more aligned decisions for your life. So happy to connect with you there. Don't have a website yet, but it's on my to-do list.
Okay, it's great. Anything else you want to share with us before we end our conversation?
Yeah, no, it was lovely. I think I enjoyed it most because Carmen, you are one half of me, and Julia is kind of the other half.
Oh,
Meaning,
I think we're all kind of centered that way. I think I display one side here, but I have the other side, and Carmen same, and you same.
yeah,
I think that's actually why we're similar, is we share
right.
both the analytic and the intuitive.
That's right.
yeah.
I think I'm on your side there, Julia. All
Yeah,
right.
that's it. Yeah, enjoyed the conversation. Would love to have more. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is really
Yeah.
fun. Thanks, Adam.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was awesome.